And how did you determine that?
We had done an addition to the house and had a remodel done. And once we went for our permit to be approved finally and get the certificate of occupancy, it requires an as-built.
Yeah, that was for the house.
For the house. But the as-built then included the shed, and that's when I found out that it was 5 feet off the property line rather than 6 feet.
Well, if you had had survey information, that should have helped you, but, well, that's the way those things happen sometime. I've visited the site, and the existence of the property line is very confused with the brush and everything on that slope.
Great.
And I can see that as an issue. I have nothing further.
Mr. Nicanello.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. I just want to make a couple of comments. I think it's a wonderful-looking shed, and it was designed intensely to withstand wind load and all the other criteria that goes along with building.
Correct.
So it's pretty sturdy shed.
Very sturdy.
Yeah, pretty sturdy shed.
Somewhat overbuilt.
Yeah. And when did you actually construct the shed? Was it when you did the addition, or was it before?
It was after the addition.
It was after the addition?
Right. There was a shed on the property before, which we demolished.
Oh, okay.
So that we could have room to do the construction for the additions. And once we did that, the owner said that he did want a new shed put in, and so we designed the shed and then determined that that was a good location, that he wanted it.
Yeah.
I looked at it, and although, if you look at the as-built, you'll see that on the side,
Yeah.
if you're facing the property from Cruiser Lane, it
Yeah.
would be on the left side.
Yeah.
We did adhere to an easement issue where it says 15.3 feet. If we would have brought that straight back, we would have been in non-compliance with that setback. So we did know that there was some site issues there, but it never occurred to me because of where I saw the fence up.
Sure.
On the,
Yeah.
that we did that. So again, it was an oversight on my part.
Yeah.
I've built quite a few houses around Yarmouth and
yeah.
everything, and I do adhere to the policies. It's just, I can't say anything more than that.
The name of the company is very reputable in town. Yes.
Yes,
Could
thank
you
you.
tell me where the septic system is?
And the tank is in the front of the house.
Yeah, okay.
And then it's got a pump station that goes around the opposite side of the house up onto a elevated backyard, which is where the leach field is.
So the leach field is in the backyard on the opposite side of the shed, is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah, well away from the foundation and everything. I had to agree with the building in order to get the permit with Bruce. Pardon me, I'm
Murphy?
yes, Bruce Murphy. We had to actually locate the leach field last winter in December. If you remember, we had a hard freeze.
Yes,
And
we-
trying to find it during that time was not easy, but we found it, and he approved it.
No further questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Igo.
No questions, thank you.
Britta.
No questions, Mr. Chairman?
So is, well, let me say, I think it's pretty straightforward to me what the issue is. I don't have any questions of it. I'm not going to comment on whether it's good construction or not. I'm not a contractor. Mr. Nicanello is. Let him tell us if it's well-built.
Well, but I appreciate his comments.
Stands and it withstands a hurricane, it's probably pretty well-built. Is either Donna Hall or Michael Hall here? All right, well, in this instance, we have received one bit of correspondence. I want to say that at the end of that correspondence, it indicates that that the writer would prefer not to have the concerns directly detailed. So I'm going to abide by that wish, but say that I guess you know that there are some concerns about the manner in which this property was developed. And, you know, I understand, like everybody does, that when a development on a piece of property is going on, that it very often a nuisance to the neighbor who has to listen to the nail guns and the sawing and watch the debris move around the lot as it's being, the work is being done. All we ask anybody is to, one, be understanding of that, but also, two, to the contractor, please be aware of neighbors' concerns, because after all, they're living there while you're making a living building there.
Correct.
And, that's pretty important to people, and we all want to be good neighbors. But the Board of Health also did weigh in, and it indicated that there is an existing Title V, 1995 built septic system located in the front yard and right rear corner. The location of the shed does not impact that existing septic system or its components. Does anybody in our audience care to speak in favor of this petition? If so, would you come to this microphone at the lectern? And seeing none, does anyone want to speak in opposition to this? And if so, again, please come to the microphone. And seeing none. So we now close it to the public's input on this petition. We open it up to board discussion and deliberations. Ms. Britta, what are your thoughts?
I have no comment, Mr. Chairman.
And how about you, Mr. Igo?
Well, I think, mistakes do happen. Everybody's human. I've listened to the testimony of the petitioner. I don't find that it was anything but an honest mistake. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have this board is when mistakes are made. And I know this wouldn't be the first time that someone came before the board with such an issue. And sometimes we have people that have built houses that come before us and they're too close to lot lines. The only thing that I might suggest is this may be a variance versus a special permit because it's a new structure and it's encroaching on a lot line. I do think he meets the variance criteria, but I would suggest that the board proceed under the variance relief versus the special permit. But I do support the petition and the request for relief, and I would urge the board to do so as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I'm going to chime in, usually out of order. The order is I usually pass on and be the last guy to go, but I do want to address the issues just raised by Mr. Igo and agree fully that it requires a variance and you must meet those criteria. And for those sitting at home that might be so rapidly interested in what those criteria are, I'm going to detail them as follows: that the literal enforcement of the bylaws relating to side, in this case, rear yard setbacks, if enforced, would create a substantial hardship, financial or otherwise. On that topic, I think, on that particular element of the variance, I think that the petitioner has met that by, thanks in part to Mr. Nicanello's eloquent discussion of the good construction job here, but it's also a pretty permanent structure. And I think it would be a very difficult thing to move, and also let's stay away from the existing septic system. That the hazard is owing, hardship rather, is owing to circumstances relating to soil condition, shape, or topography. Well, it's due and owing to a mistake thanks to the shape and topography of this land, with that slope coming down and the severe brush, the heavy brush that's grown there, and makes it very difficult to locate the lot line. And in this case, desirable relief certainly can be granted without any detriment to the public good and nullifying or substantial degradation of the intent or purposes of these bylaws. Rear yard setbacks are very, very important to people, particularly when they don't put night fences up to separate themselves. And we're very cautious about granting any relief except in the case of, truly a lack of public outcry by the abutters. In this case, we have no outcry by anybody other than one bit of correspondence that actually suggests we should grant the variance so that the project can move along to a completion. And, I hope that project does move along to a completion. Despite concerns referenced by this correspondence, I think the logic of what they're suggesting makes a whole bunch of sense to me, and that is, let's get the deal done and over with. So how close are you to finishing up the project?
If I get the variance granted tonight, we'll say it's finished,
It's finished?
yes.
And when did the permit get pulled?
The permit was pulled probably in July or August.
Oh, okay.
So it's been a while, and we were waiting for the house permit to be approved, and that's when we found out from the surveyors that with the as-built, it was not in compliance.
Sure.
The permit, the shed had been approved by the building department for structural reasons and compliance, but they didn't have the site plan or the as-built, so they couldn't say anything.
Give you a
then.
final.
Right.
All right. Good enough. Mr. Nicanello, your thoughts?
I am all set. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And how about you, Mr. Barron?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Is anybody prepared to make a motion on this petition 4784?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the variance relief as requested with no conditions.
Is there a second to that motion made by Mr. Igo?
Second?
Who was that? Mr. Barron? The older I get, now that I've turned 65, I find my hearing is leaving me. Does anybody care to have discussion on that motion made by Mr. Igo, seconded by Mr. Barron before proceeding to a vote?
The only thing I would like to do, Mr. Chairman, is introduce this site plan as an exhibit.
Well, you know, it's actually part of our file.
The petition?
Yeah, it's part of the petition, and I don't know why we would need to separately do it.
Nope. you
I mean,
don't
I'm
have
happy to do it if you want, but.
Oh, this just shows where it is, where it's located. That's the only reason it's stamped, so.
Sure, why don't we do that then? How about if I take your
Take
copy
mine.
so we don't,
You can have mine.
so I'm going to identify for you, we don't really think we're judges and jurors here, but we have to mark things now by statute, and we have to identify them as exhibits. This will be Exhibit 1.
I have an extra if Sean needs it.
Thanks.
No, that's all right. We're all set. So I'm going to scratch off here none and say Exhibit 1, site plan. All right. So there's a motion made by Mr. Igo, seconded by Mr. Barron. Does the board care to have any discussion before moving along to deliberations? To a vote, rather? And hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? That carries unanimously. A decision will be drafted, unless you want to draft it for me. That decision will be drafted. It will be filed with the town clerk's office. 20 days must elapse before that is considered to be a final decision. That decision, that variance will need to be brought to the Barnstable Registry of Deeds, recorded with proof of recordation returned back to our wonderful board secretary, Miss Sandy Clark, sitting at my left. So thank you very, very much. Moving on to the next.
All right.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you, board. I really appreciate it, and hope not to see you over here again.
Well, that's always nice, but we look forward to seeing you when you come.
Well, for better reasons, not mistakes. How's that?
Okay, good.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Petition 4785, Gabriella Lopes, 28, I hope I'm saying this right, Pawcatuck?
Yeah, Pawcatuck.
Pawcatuck. See, I learn something new every day on this now. Drive, South Yarmouth, Mass. I probably won't remember how to say it tomorrow, though. Zoning District R25. Our applicant is seeking a special permit under zoning bylaw 202.5, use table P 7A, to operate a home daycare. Good evening. Would you identify yourself, please?
My name is Gabriella Lopes, and I'm just looking for a special permit for a small in-home daycare.
Well, why don't you tell us all about it now?
So I already have the daycare open. I have a license from the state, from Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They never told me I needed a town license, so when you guys came to my door, I was shocked, but I wanted to come and get my license as soon as possible. It's a small daycare. I can only watch 6 kids. One of those kids is my daughter, so I only have 5 outsiders. Out of those 5 kids, two of them are siblings, so they come in the same car. So there's only 4 cars coming to my house. They come in the morning at around 7:30 to 8 o'clock, and then the pickup time is around 4:30 to 5. They never really come at the same time together, but it's usually around that time.
Okay.
And my hours are also 7 to 5, Monday to Friday.
The what again?
The hours that I work is 7 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Okay. Remind me, did I pick on you first last time, Susan? Okay, I'll start with you.
Okay.
Please,
I just,
Susan.
I'm a little concerned, I'm reading the violation notice on October 18th, and it says you did not respond. Can you give us some background on what happened there?
Yeah, so I don't remember his name. Was it Steve? Steve, his name? Sandy?
James, you mean the person that signed the letter
Yeah.
was James Brandolini.
Yeah, so James came to my house and he told me that I needed this permit and that he was gonna mail me the application. And so he didn't tell me how long it was gonna take, he just told me he was gonna mail it. And so I waited for that letter, and I never got that letter in the mail up until this day. But I think it's because on that, where we live, sometimes the mail people, they get confused with 28 and 26. But I did go to 26 to ask if they had it, and they said they didn't have it, so I never got it. But I came here and got it after.
Okay. So it was a case of missing
Yeah.
correspondence on the part of the town. Did you ever pay any fines? Were any fines?
No, I didn't.
Right, and there are 6 children total, 1 is yours.
One is mine.
All right, and most of the other children arrive by private vehicle?
Yes.
Not come in a school bus or anything?
No, they don't come in school bus.
Okay. And what are the hours again, please?
7 to 5.
7 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what happens if there's a parent is late picking up the child? You obviously keep the child.
Yeah.
What is the procedure then?
There's really nothing. I just have to wait for them. Yeah.
All right, and there's enough,
But it never happened before.
okay, in the neighborhood, if there were a requirement for an ambulance, if something happened to one of the children, or fire trucks, there's no problem getting support vehicles down the street, turnaround area, any of that, there's no problem with that at all?
No.
Okay. All right, I have no other questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Igo.
Yes, do you have any, do you have a layout here?
I have pictures also. I don't think you guys have the pictures.
I'm sorry. You have to speak what?
I have pictures. I don't know if
Well,
you guys have the
If you're
pictures.
going to receive anything, we need to keep them, okay?
Okay.
If you want to pass something
Okay.
up, please feel free. I don't want you to describe them or anything else. We'll ask you as we go along if we need it. And so you know, I'm going to mark them as one composite exhibit, including, sorry for this formality, but we got to do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 photos consisting of 6 photos will be marked as Exhibit 1.
Do you own or do you rent that property?
I rent the property.
And do you have a lease, a written lease with the landlord?
I don't.
Is the landlord aware that you're running a daycare out of there?
Yeah, he signed the application.
He signed the
Yeah, he signed it.
And is there someone that lives right next door to you in the other unit?
Yes, he lives on 26 Packanacket.
Okay. I'm actually quite familiar with the area. I rode it
You probably run through there, don't you?
many times.
Yeah. I'm telling you, I'm going to cut a
Now,
path in my
where are the
backyard.
children in your unit? Where do you care for them?
So they can only go downstairs. I only have the license for downstairs, so I have a daycare room, which you can see in the picture, which they mostly stay in that room. But they can also go to the kitchen, the living room, and the bathroom, and then in the backyard.
And is that all on the main floor? when
Main
you
floor,
walk in?
yes. Mhm.
And how long have you been doing this?
So I got my license in June. but I only started getting the kids around like the end of August.
And how old is your daughter?
My daughter is 1.
1. And how about the other children? How old are they?
They're all under 3.
Under 3?
They're all under 3. They're little babies.
And so what would be the oldest child that you would care for?
So the oldest I have right now, he will be 3 next month.
But I mean, if we grant you a license or a special permit, did you think about that as to the maximum age of the children that you would be watching?
I believe they told me it was 9.
9.
I believe so, but I'm not sure what the age was.
Is that the state that said 9?
Yeah.
They told you 9.
Yeah, state. I'm not sure if I'm not really sure if it is, but I believe it was 9.
I see. And have you received training in daycare?
Yes.
And how much training did you receive?
So we have trainings, I think 6 times a year. I have my CPR, I have first aid. I got, we do trainings before we open the daycare, so I have all of that. And then at the last thing we need is just the state license, which I also have that one. They came to my house and inspect everything, and then they told me it was fine to open it.
And how long a lease do you have there at that residence?
No lease.
Yeah, there's no lease.
You're a tenant at will.
Yes.
And when did you move in there?
I moved to that one last September 2017, but before that I used to live on 26B, so the one right next to it. I moved there in like July 2016.
Okay, so you've been living in that
Yeah, in that area since,
switch building?
Yeah.
Switched units?
yeah, because I had the baby.
I see. So you, right now, you have 1 child that's yours, the other 2 are siblings, they come over, so that's 3, and how many others do you have?
I have altogether 6 with my daughter, including my daughter. So 5, that's not including my daughter. So there's only 4 cars that come and drop them off.
Okay. Okay. That's all I have right now, thank you.
Mr. Nicanello.
Yes, thank you. Good evening.
Leaving.
Thanks for taking care of the future, which is our little children.
Yeah.
They do grow up, and maybe one of them will sit here one day.
Yep.
With
Oh,
that,
please, come and take my seat.
so I have a letter from the Town of Yarmouth Building Department addressed to you from the Deputy Building Commissioner, Mr. Brandolini, which I'm sure you had a discussion with.
Yeah.
It says, you've been issued a license by the Commonwealth Board of Early Education Care number, and issued on June 7th. This license was viewed by me on this date. So you and him must have had a conversation,
We did, yeah.
and he reviewed the license, which is right here.
Yeah.
And at that time, you're saying that he was going to mail you something from the town?
Yeah, he was gonna mail me the application for the license.
And it's your testimony that you did not receive it,
Yeah, I did not receive it.
but you knew you needed one.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Aaron.
In the rear of the building, it appears that there's something of a deck or a
I can see it now.
patio. Do you have any use of that for the children? I noticed the area outside that's fenced, but there's also a stockade fence.
So the other side of the fence is actually my neighbor's side, so I don't use that
So
part.
you don't have
No.
access to that?
No, I don't.
Okay. In terms of the amount of area for the children to play outside, is that sufficient for the state?
Yes, they came in and they approved it.
It does seem rather small, but for 6 small kids, it may be enough. Would you
Yeah.
have any intention to enlarge that?
I do,
Or
yes.
to change the location?
Yes. So, since we're renting that house, I don't plan on staying there forever. But, the town did, the state did say that I could do it a little bit bigger if I wanted to, but she did tell me I didn't have to because it was big enough for them.
Would you have to reapply to them for that permission?
I don't believe so.
I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, if
Mr.
I
Chairman,
can. I see.
Could I just ask, I hate to interrupt before you
Sure.
finalize, could I just ask a couple of other questions that have
Sure, please.
You mentioned that you're a tenant in will. Have you invested in the interior fit-out of that house to accommodate childcare activities?
You mean, did I make the, Put the-
Doesn't the state require certain, like, little tiny toilets and cubbies and things like that for childcare facilities? Or is that just once you get to a certain number of children?
no, they do require all of that. Well, they don't require they require the toys and everything.
Right.
Yeah,
But no special architectural, nothing?
no.
No tables or chairs or anything like that?
Well, there's chairs, yeah, and tables. Well, there's a small table and chairs.
You haven't invested in any permanent fixtures in the
No,
real estate?
no.
Did you put up those fences?
I did. That was the only thing. But it's like a wire thing, so it just comes off. It's not like a wood fence. It's like a wired fence, so it comes off really easily. That was the only thing I put in.
What comes off, the fence itself out of the ground?
Yeah, if I wanted to take it out, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So, as I understand it, what happens is you get licensed. Nobody tells you about an obligation to get approval under our zoning bylaws.
No, she was told.
No, according to what she told Mr. Brandolini, you were not told, right?
Yeah, not a town license.
That's what I just asked you, and you said
What?
on June 7th, you had a discussion, and you were aware that you needed a license from the town
No, he told me that day that I needed a license.
on June 7th.
Yeah, no, not on June 7th. He came in to my house, not on June 7th. June 7th is the day that I got my state license. When he came into my house, I wasn't aware that I needed a town license, but he told me that day that I needed a town license.
When he appeared that day?
Yeah, when he appeared that day.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And was that Jim Brandolini?
Yeah.
Well, before then, on October, when did Mr. Brandolini come to your home?
I don't remember the date.
Well, he sends out a notice of violation on, let's see, violation date, October 4. And you were ordered to cease and desist until such time as the special permit was obtained. Did you cease and desist?
What does that mean?
Stop using the facility as a daycare until you obtain?
No, so what I was told is that if I go over,
By whom?
yeah, if I go over that day, that I would have to close, but I didn't go over that day.
I don't follow.
So when he came to my house,
Yeah,
he told me that he was gonna mail me the application.
sure.
I never got that application, so he sent me an email saying that if I don't get the application in by a certain date, I think it was the 30th, I don't remember, but he said if I don't get the application in by a certain date, then I would have to close or I would have to pay a $300 fee every day. But I never went over that day. I got the application in before that day.
Would you have that email with you by any chance?
I can look on my phone, see.
Because I'm a bit confused about the chronology here, and usually I can figure these things out, but I'm a little hard at it, finding difficulty with it tonight. Because what I see is that on October 4, yeah, What are we talking about? We got the violation, we talking about the second correspondence?
This one here, when they had a discussion.
Dated October 18th.
7, the last bullet point.
You've been issued a license, this license was reviewed by me on this date, October 4. Go ahead, what do you think it says?
Well, it says they had a discussion on the 17th license reviewed by me on this date, when I advised you that the town of Yarmouth requires a special permit. To me, I'm.
This date, October 4. I'm trying to get my chronology
Yeah,
right.
I'm assuming that they had talked that date.
On June 7?
That's what, yes.
No, that's not what the letter says,
The
though.
license was viewed by me on that date.
No, the license issued that date was reviewed by me, that's what it says.
By
That-
Mr. Brandolini.
Yeah, but no, the license wasn't issued by Mr. Brandolini, it was
State
issued by the
license.
state
State.
on June 7.
Reviewed it is what he's saying.
Not on June 7. He's saying he reviewed it on this date, October 4.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He visited the home on October 4. I mean, I want to get the chronology
Yeah.
down. You get a license issued on June 7, you start running a daycare.
Yeah.
On 10/4, based on something, Mr. Brandolini visits you and says, are you running a daycare here? Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, now, and the reason I'm asking is because I'm kind of confused about how he gets there, because on October 5, there's a complaint form filed, dated October 5, but it's date stamped October 4. I'm just trying to figure the chronologies out here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because a private notice of complaint is filed dated 10/5 and date stamped October 4. So what I'm suspecting happened is that was just a scrivener's error, a mistake by somebody. You're not going to be able to answer it for me.
Okay.
I'm just telling you my thought process. So on October 4, he visits you, and he says essentially, shut the thing down, right?
No.
He doesn't?
No.
Well, on October 18, he sends a violation notice saying that, in fact, you're running a daycare contrary to the rules and regulations of the town of Yarmouth, and that on that date of October 4, I sent you written notice instructing you to file for a special permit to operate a family daycare. That's the application you say you didn't get?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's not the obligation of our town, and I just want to make this crystal clear to you and everybody else listening, that it's not the obligation of our town employees to tell anybody what they need to do. It's the obligation of the petitioners to find out what they need to do and act appropriately according to our law. I'm not trying to chastise you, I just find this whole thing a little unsettling to me. How it all develops. So on October 4, he alleges he sent that to you, and you allege that you didn't receive it. In any event, let's move on from that, because he says to you at that time, since you failed to respond, I'm telling you right now, either knock it off or we're going to start giving you $300 per day fines after October 31 of 2018. That's the chronology, because I sense that there was a mistake in chronology on some
Absolutely.
part of this,
Yeah,
okay?
absolutely.
So now we come to a situation from October 31 to today. Has it continued to run as a daycare?
Yes.
And did Mr. Brandolini, as that office would usually do, tell you that there would be no fines imposed if you filed a request for relief from this board until this board then rendered a decision? In other words, did he say he's not going to fine you? Or is he sending you notice of fines?
I'm not sure what the question is, sorry.
I'm sorry?
Can you just repeat the question? What you just asked me?
Can you use the bathroom?
No, you repeat the question.
Oh, jeez. See, it's a good thing I went to a hearing specialist last Friday. Wow. Open foot, insert mouth. Can I repeat the question? Sure. The question is Mr. Brandolini sending you notices of fines?
Oh, no.
Okay. So I'm going to presume that what he's done is he's stayed the enforcement of the bylaw pending your coming here and getting a decision. Does that seem logical to everybody?
Ms. Clark has a statement.
Excuse me. Ms. Lopes met with Mr. Brandolini and myself I'm not sure of the
I'm going to
date.
ask you if you'd speak up, because we don't want people at home emailing us, Ms.
I don't
Clark,
usually talk.
and you know better than that.
Right, to the mic, please.
Right into the mic, please.
Ms. Lopes came in, she called Mr. Brandolini, or emailed myself, I'm not sure what date that was regarding this situation, and met with both of us here, and we sat down here in this room and put together an application and what was required to get before the board.
Was that in October?
I don't know if it was October or
Yes,
November.
it was before he
February,
told me, because he went to my house on the 4th. Here we go again. He went to my house on the 4th. I never got the letter. So he said that after the 17th, if I don't come in and do the application, he's going to start.
She set a date with us.
Yes, so I came in before the 17th.
I have okay, so you had that discussion. December,
Yeah, that's what I see.
so what caused the delay between October 31 or whenever, October 18, after you received the October 18 letter, telling you were going to get fined $300 a day? What delayed the filing of this application? It's a
So
simple
I
piece of
sent in
paper.
I sent in the application, you said what day?
This application for hearing is date stamped the 18th of December. No, I'm sorry, the 17th of December.
So he gave me the application. So actually, we did meet up after that. It was after October, because I just realized. He gave me this application. I had no idea what it was. I had no idea how to even fill out one thing about it. So I had to come in, and I couldn't get a day off right away because he told me right away. I couldn't get a day off right away. So when I did get a day off, I came here to talk to them, and they helped me fill it out.
52
And I
days
also, I don't know, because
month of November
because I also needed, and then after that, we came back, because I needed a signature from my landlord, and I could never find him. So then I finally got a signature from him, and that's when I brought it back.
Okay. Well, again, I say, it's not up to our town to have to educate people on how to obey the law. It's up to you people to obey the law. And I just, I don't know. I've been on this board for a long time. I don't remember seeing one quite like this, which almost seems to me to be like a flagrant violation. But Mr. Brandolini's the one who enforces the fines, and we're merely the board that determines whether or not relief should be granted. So that's a whole different story. But I got to tell you, if you're going to do things in this town, you got to obey the laws, and you need to be aware of the laws, okay? So I want to go through a series of correspondence here, because I don't want to read correspondence and then have people also want to talk. So let me read out names, and if you'd raise your hand if you're here, I'd appreciate it. Kelly Yancey,
I am here.
is it your intention to speak or for me to read this letter?
I would like to speak. Oh, you couldn't read the letter, but yes.
But we're not going to do both.
Oh, okay.
Which would you prefer? I mean, you can come up and read your letter, but we're not going to do both. I mean, you know.
Yeah, okay. I'd probably rather speak.
Okay, so we're going to put your letter to the side because I think you sound very intelligent. You're going to be able to tell us what you said in your letter very clearly. How about the Gadet family? Anybody from the Gadet family? Is it your intention to speak, or would you like me to read your letter?
That was written by my husband.
Oh, okay.
He just passed away one day, so.
I'm so sorry, very sorry for your loss. Would you would like to speak this evening, or would you like me to just read the letter? It's your choice. I'll do both, in fact, since it was written by your husband.
Well, I'd rather, you can do both. That's fine.
Then we'll read that letter. How about Karen Troster? I hope I'm saying that right? No? Okay, I'll read that letter in full. April Regolinsky.
She doesn't live in town, so she easier would be read it.
That's fine, I'll read it, sure. Just, we're not gonna do both with people, that's all. Graveline, Stanley Graveline, Rosalie Graveline. So we'll read that letter at home. And anybody else that's here to speak, it's fine that you speak, but we're gonna try to get through this quickly. So, this is a letter of Norman Goodat, and I'm sorry is no longer with us, and he says the following. We object to the permit for a daycare home across the street from our home. We are on a narrow dirt road with only enough room for one car to pass and no room to park any cars in the road. We have trouble pulling out of our driveway now when they park directly across from our home, our own driveway, and they are very inconsiderate where they park. Rosalie and Stanley Gravelin. Letter of January 4, they state, we have owned the home at 8 and 10, your street, since 1978 and became full-time residents of both addresses in August of 2017. The property has been completely refurbished and is a beautiful, comfortable home for us in our late retirement years. We object to the special permit request to operate a daycare center at 2628. That same street is a totally inappropriate and unwelcome business in what is currently a peaceful, quiet neighborhood. It doesn't belong. Additionally, the beginning of our road is an unimproved dirt road with potholes, a normal condition. The increased traffic that would result from the proposed daycare would exacerbate this problem. While alternate access to the property exists, the most direct route, and the one cited by map directors, is in front of our property. The daycare operation would clearly degrade our serene living experience. We respectfully ask that the special permit request be rejected. We apologize for not attending. Well, certainly no apology necessary. The letter of January 3, 2019 from attorney April Regonlinsky. I'm unable to attend the hearing on the above petition for a special permit to operate a home daycare, but I'm writing to object to the granting of this special permit. 2628, our road is already a multi-unit property on a narrow residential street ending in a dirt road. The current tenants and residents of the property already have numerous cars and trucks that congest the area. They failed to park all of their vehicles in their several driveways and instead parked them on the narrow road across from 33 and 23 Pockanocket Drive. This makes it difficult for neighbors to enter and exit their properties and for everyone to drive down the street. Additionally, my neighbor who has cancer has already complained to the Board of Health because of the trash issues at 2628. The tenants, residents, leave an overflowing trash bin on the edge of their property where it meets the street across from 33 and 23 Pockanocket Drive. At times, the trash blows into our yards and attracts animals. The trash bin is left, The trash bin is left out on the edge of the street 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and is never appropriately brought back near the home. Under the section of the Code of Mass Regulations 105, Section 410.600, garbage and rubbish must be stored. Is it okay to keep reading, or?
Keep reading,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Is never appropriately brought back near the home. Under the noted section of the Code of Mass Regulations, garbage and rubbish must be stored in watertight receptacles with tight-fitting covers, and garbage must be out for collection no earlier than the day of collection. 2620, is that your garbage bag?
No, it's not.
Your garbage thing? 2628 is already in violation, and the granting of a special permit for home daycare will only exacerbate the vehicle congestion and trash issues That is to say, numerous cars picking up and dropping off children day and night, and dirty diapers and waste in the overflowing trash bin. Granting of a special permit will cause an undue nuisance and congestion and will negatively affect the neighborhood. It is the burden of the applicant to show otherwise. I respectfully object to the granting of this. And lastly, a letter of Karen Troster. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, please apologize to Karen. Our family has owned 11 Aspinet Road for decades. We love being able to come home to this neighborhood as where is that? The abutting street?
Yeah.
Is that the street that you gain access to onto your drive?
No,
The road that you-
no, it's another one.
We love being able to come home to this neighborhood as a retreat from our busy lives. The neighborhood is quiet and there's very little traffic. When we are there, our children often ride their bikes in the neighborhood, and as a family, we enjoy taking walks to the beach. More cars coming in and out of the neighborhood to drop off and pick up children at the daycare would change this. We care deeply about the neighborhood and are concerned about a daycare moving in down the street. We're concerned about increased traffic and parking, as well as the increase in noise levels. We chose to live in a residential area and do not feel as though it is the best place for a daycare. While convenient for the homeowner who is hoping to create a business out of his or her home, it is not convenient for those who live on the street. Does anyone in our audience care to speak in favor of this petition? If so, please come to the microphone, tell us who you are and where you live. Seeing none. Does anyone care to speak in opposition to this petition? If so, please come to the microphone, tell us who you are and where you live. No, you gotta go, oh, you're gonna pass something out? Okay, thank you. Thank you. You don't be nervous now. I saw that hand shaking. You just relax.
Right.
There are no wires up there. We're not gonna zap you if you say anything wrong.
Very good.
All right, so before you get started, I'm gonna tell you I'm gonna keep these pages 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 photographs that you've passed up. They're going to collectively be marked as Exhibit 2.
Good.
Okay?
Okay.
For anybody that cares to make note of this, it will be referenced in a decision in any event. So that's Exhibit 2. Would you identify who you are and what you'd like to tell us about?
Okay, I'm Dee Kelly Yancey, and I do live across the street from
At
the
what number,
property
please?
at Pockanocket.
Which numbers, though?
1 Wampanoag. And I initially objected when I saw the fence going up, realizing these people were going to, actually, it was more than just having their own child there, that it would be expandable. Even to today, they still were doing drop-offs of children today, and yesterday, and all last week and all. And my objection to it was noted, as you say, well back in October, and I think even previously to that. But my official complaint was filed in October when I realized this was going to be an expanding business. And I didn't object when the first children came, or when the first child came. I didn't object to the second, but when it came up to 4 and 5, I thought, well, this is, I don't know how many they're going to plan to do here, but it was time to stop, especially knowing that after they were advised that they needed the license, they continued to operate the business even though they were not supposed to be operating it. There's been paint cans out there at the base of the tree for like 8 months now. They've never bothered picking them up. They did pick up some of it, and in some of those photographs you can see the overloaded diapers hanging out of the trash bucket. I just think there's so many other places that a business could be operated that was much more appropriate than a small apartment that isn't even owned by the individual running the business. To me, it would be more appropriate to own the building and then make the building work for for the business. I don't think you should start a business in a building that you don't own when it's this kind of a business. The children should be considered as far as being taken care of. I just don't think a small apartment is a proper ideal location for a business. And that's pretty much all I have to say.
Well, before you leave, I just want to reference something that you've said, so you understand our zoning, I'm falling victim of my own. So the zoning bylaws in this town do not require ownership of the property. They do require proper tenancy.
Right.
Okay. That, I'm not commenting any further, I just want to let you know that,
Right.
all right? Does anybody, did you have anything else?
No.
Thank you very, very
Okay.
much. Does anybody have, is there anybody else who would care to speak in opposition to this petition? If so, please come to the microphone. Again, I want to say to you, everyone in this room agrees we're sorry for your loss.
Thank you. I object because the fence that they have up there, the way I look at it, I call it chicken wire. I mean, that's not a proper fence for a child to be in. And if my grandchildren or my children, I would never allow them to be in a situation like that. And I just feel that we retired down here to a residential area, and it's strictly summer people, but most of the houses, that we shouldn't be objected to something like this. I really oppose to it.
Thank you. And
Thank
just
you.
for everybody at home, you are Anita Gaudette?
Yes, I'm
You live
sorry.
at 230 Pockanock
Yes, I live across the street.
Drive, directly across the street. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else care to speak in opposition? Please feel free to line right up behind that mic.
My name is Robert Goslin. I live on 15 Wampanoag Road, across the street from two duplexes, and I can also see the house down the street. The children that she's been taking care of have been being taken care of by the people in the duplex across the street from me. It was increased traffic out of that duplex, but I wasn't going to fight about it because I've been up against other stuff in the town, and I'm too old to fight. Until she moved down there and I found out that she was going to open up a daycare center. I know the house because it's owned by Mr. Inslee years back, and I've been in there. And it is not big enough to run a daycare. Secondly, referring to, and I don't have the dates, when Mr. Bandolini put a cease and desist order, I go through that area every day. There were 9 cars, 2 trucks, 2 vans, and a huge van, painting ladders all over. They fly out of Wampanoag. I counted 9 cars. There is also an apartment over the garage, who I don't know who's living there, that has a door that connects into her first apartment, which would make it a 3-bedroom. It's a studio apartment. That area is not conducive. I've noticed an uptick in traffic since that daycare is gone. I'm up in the morning, they fly in at 7 o'clock. In the evening, it's anywhere from 4:30 to 5:30. There's an increase in traffic. And I don't believe it's a proper place for a daycare. The property itself, if you look at Mrs. Yancey's pictures, that material that's laying by the trees has been there since February. The house was painted, spray painted back in February, which I was surprised they were painting. Those buckets have been out there, not picked up. They cover them up with leaves. I was going to go out and check them, but I'm afraid it might be hazardous. And also, I have no right to go on the building. Secondly, in the back now, I notice there's more trash. I don't know what it is. Her pin that she put up, I agree with the missus, it's chicken wire. The toys are there, been laying there all winter. They're filthy. The other thing is, that fence backs up to the Red Jacket house. In the summertime, that house has got 10 to 12 foreigners who work different shifts at Red Jacket, who come
Oh, you
home
mean
in the
it's
afternoon.
Is it employee housing for the Red Jacket?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
They come home in the afternoon and they party. They're out, they come in at 2, 3 in the morning, which would not affect the daycare. But I don't think it's a proper environment to have children out in a pen with a bunch of guys sitting on a deck, drinking beer, and God knows what else is going on. So I've been in that area for almost 40 years, and I've seen what's happening. I'm sorry. People tell me, if you don't like it, move. I've seen a lot over there. If you go down to a police station, and they'll tell you, 14, 16, 12 of them, it's been nothing but problems between drugs and all the rest. And in the summertime, there's a lot of people that walk around. Now, if she doesn't give them 24/7 supervision, they can walk up there and grab one of them and be gone. She'd never know it. But that's all I have to say.
Before you leave, may I ask you a question?
Yep.
You've been there for 40 years. Have you seen a lot of police activity in this neighborhood?
Oh, I've seen it all.
Yeah,
I've
on
seen
your
them with
road?
guns drawn.
On your road?
Run in Wampanoag, they came out, 4 cruisers, guns out. Matter of fact, one of the guys broke the guy's jaw down in Trader Ed's. There was a gang of them. They had cars parked on the property, and they were running drugs and swapping plates.
Where's that, in the
I-
back parking lot?
Right in front of the duplex. I served 4 weeks undercover, doing the plate numbers and descriptions, and in contact with the detectives.
I see.
So I'm very well. The other duplex on the other side, the state police came in. They came in, went in with guns, shotguns. I've seen it all.
All right, thank you
So
very much.
that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else care to speak in opposition to the petition? And seeing none, we now close it to public commentary on the petition. We're going to open it up to board discussions, possibly motions and the like. Mr. Barron, your thoughts?
Well, I've heard a lot tonight. First, the state has given the license to this location. They've approved the internal and external facilities for the children. And the only major difficulty has been to obtain the town permit. But what troubles me is that it took at least a 14-day period, a 2-week period for Mr. Brandolini to be able to make to drive the point home that there was that there needed to be a cease and desist order. From that point on, it took more than 64 days until the 21st of December to actually file an application. In all that period of time, I would assume that the daycare is being fully functioning. It troubles me that this amounts to a flaunting of the town regulations to a point where it makes it very difficult to try to support this petition at all.
Mr. Nicanello?
Yes, thank you. Kind of wish the building commissioner was here, but the timeline still kind of doesn't settle with me correctly. I know he went there on October 4th, and then he came back to his office and he wrote this letter. And he said that on June 7th, he viewed the license and he met with the applicant. And I know in my mind, Mr. Brandolini would said that you needed a license from the town. I know I can't drive on the highway unless I have a driver's license. I know this. I mean, if you're doing a business, you have to do your research, you have to do your fact-checking, and I'm just confused on the whole process. I don't think I have enough information. Did you ever tell us when you had that email? Yeah?
No, I didn't.
Okay. I have no more questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Igo, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have seen a number of family daycares come before the board over the years, and I believe we have addressed it through town hall, through town meeting, to further define it and actually make it part of the bylaw. When we first looked at these, they weren't even in the bylaw in the use table. And generally, we have allowed them. You presented yourself very nicely tonight. I think you would be a good daycare operator. You probably are a good daycare operator. The problem that I have is where you're operating. I'm very familiar with that area over there. It's very tight. Everything's very congested. You're in one side of a duplex. The house directly behind you up on the hill, I think that gentleman was describing, is a rental as well. The neighbors are in very close proximity to you over there. I don't think you have adequate parking for pickup and drop-off. I do think your facility is a bit small for the number of children that you have. Under the criteria of the bylaw, you can't be granted a special permit unless you show that you are going to not create any undue nuisance, hazard, or congestion. I think you are creating undue nuisance, hazard, and congestion by your operation. So I don't think you're going to meet the criteria of the bylaw. So therefore, I would not be able to support this petition. I would suggest to you that if you want to run a daycare business, that you do it in a house or another facility somewhere else that's got more room. I don't think your neighbors are saying this personally against you. I think if it was anybody sitting there, they'd be against the daycare in that particular location. You present yourself very nice. You seem like a very nice neighbor. Unfortunately, I just think you're operating in a place that's just not really conducive for a daycare center. And so for those reasons, Mr. Chairman, I will not be able to support the petition. Thank you.
Ms. Britta?
Mr. Chairman, for all the reasons stated by my colleagues, I would join them. But I also want to mention, I'm also very familiar with the neighborhood, and that is a neighborhood that has struggled recently. And I think it's finally turned the corner. I know the police have been a strong presence down there. They had a major drug problem for a long time. I think it is finally under control, or on its way to being under control. The issue of traffic coming in and out of that neighborhood is a big issue, because that brings the opportunity for people to come into the neighborhood if they wanted to try to resurrect that drug problem. It is a residential neighborhood. The neighbors have committed to living there. They are very concerned, as you have all stated, with the increased traffic. The condition of the property itself, cans lying around for almost a year, that is sort of endemic for the absentee landlord. Even Ms. Lopes couldn't find the landlord to sign the application. So you have a bigger issue of these absentee landlords that really don't care what's going on the neighborhood. But it really is a residential neighborhood. And to retain and struggle and try to keep it a nice residential neighborhood and turn it around, I don't think that this activity lends itself to that goal, in addition to all of the technical issues that you all have raised. So I join Mr. Argo, certainly, and perhaps the others, in not supporting this application, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, well, I don't want anybody to misconstrue any of my comments tonight as having decided in favor or against this, but I'm persuaded by my fellow board members as I listen to their points of view. I want to make it clear to everybody, everybody that's a residential owner or occupant in that neighborhood, that daycare centers are permitted in each and every residential neighborhood of the town of Yarmouth. It is encouraged that daycare centers or daycare facilities be allowed in residential neighborhoods. Children make noise That's part of life. So I'm not persuaded by any of the arguments concerning this being an improper business within a residential neighborhood at all. That's not persuading me at all, because that's exactly what our town has sought to accomplish by what it has done with respect to our zoning bylaws and the use table reference, P7. The condition of the diapers hanging out of the bag and that sort of thing, all those things could be remedied. And uncertain as to how we might move tonight, I started to write down a number of conditions that I thought would need to be addressed if I were going to support this application. What I find most persuasive is the issue that ultimately the only guidance we have as a board concerning daycare centers or facilities within the town of Yarmouth is the mere criteria set forth in the zoning bylaw relating to the grant of special permits, meaning that there is no direction by our zoning bylaws as to what considerations we should or should not make beyond the very simple provisions of Section 103. And so going to 103, then, the only guidance I have is, will this create a nuisance, hazard, or congestion? And I'm sorry, but I have to say, yes, I think it does. I don't think in this instance I can support this. I would say to you, if you own that whole home and there weren't other people that are coming in and out of that property and doing the like, I could probably support it, because we could put on some pretty good and solid criteria that you would need to follow as conditions. But in this instance, unfortunately, I think that the thing that calls the day is the very limited review that we have under 103.2. And so I do believe it creates undue nuisance, hazard, and congestion. Hazard because of the number of cars coming in and out of a small road. Nuisance for the same reason, and the congestion is clear. I find no nuisance in children being in a residential neighborhood. I find no hazard in children being in a residential neighborhood. I find those three conditions, in my mind, to be present in this particular application. So my hope is that you will be able to continue a child care center at some other location. Since you're not living there under a lease, perhaps you'll be able to find some other location to consider it at. But this isn't the one in my mind. So with that, is somebody prepared to make a motion on this petition?
I'd like to make a motion that we deny the relief requested, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Britta, we're going to give you credit for that. I think you came in first. On that motion made by Mr. Igo, seconded by Ms. Britta, to deny the petition as presented, all those in favor, does the board care to have discussion?
The only thing I would just like to reiterate to the petitioner is that this is not directed at you.
Oh, definitely not.
This is only directed at the location of your facility. Should you, as Mr. Chairman did say before, if you were to come before us and you had a little bit more room and you didn't have as much congestion with your neighbors, I'm sure that we would probably be able to accommodate you and we would give you the special permit. So we don't want you to leave here tonight thinking that this is directed at you. It's certainly not. It's just your location. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Well, let me just add, we want to see these, the use of residential areas for childcare. We want to see that and encourage it. This is just the wrong place. So with that said, I hope you can transfer your license to another location and continue your good work with children. On the motion made by Mr. Igo, seconded by Ms. Britta, to deny the petition as presented, Does the board care to have discussion before moving along to a vote? Hearing none. All those in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. That carries unanimously. A decision will be drafted. You have a right of appeal from that decision 20 days after it's filed with the town clerk's office. Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to our next petition, that of 4786 Wayne Kirker, trustee of Hyannis Marine Service Realty Trust, 21 Arlington Street, Hyannis. The only property I know that we have to deal with every time he wants to make a change on the Hyannis side, he also has to come and see us. That's property located in a zoning district R25. Our applicant this evening seeks to amend Decision 2912 and Decision 3305, or for the grant of a new special permit under 104.3.2 and/or variance under 202.5, 203, and 301 to 1, remove partial seasonal limitation on use of southern parking lot, and 2, clarify continued access over an existing driveway from Arlington Street to the southern parking lot. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. For the record,
Identify for us who you are.
yes, I'm Andrew Singer, attorney in Dennisport, here on behalf of Hyannis Marina. And with
Mr.
me,
Singer, always good to see you.
thank you, same here, Mr. Chairman. And with me is Wayne Kirker, who is the principal operator of Hyannis Marina.
Good evening, Mr. Kirker.
Good evening.
Feel free to go right ahead.
Thank you. Way back in 1992 and 1996, when my father was sitting in this chair next to Mr. Kirker,
Hey, now don't talk about lineage here.
but he was. And before that, he was sitting up where you were. The board at that time granted relief to the marina, to the southern lot portion of the marina. And the approval was for parking principally. And there were conditions in the decision that discuss use and access to the southern portion, the southern parking lot. And I submitted to you copies of, it was just easier, in this case, so you can see, these are all separate parcels, but they're all the marine, they're all in the marina use right now. So the decisions from 1992 and 1996 cover that area. Now, some 2.5 decades later, as Mr. Kirker is refinancing the property with TD Bank North, a new lawyer for the bank has raised a question about 2 of the conditions in the old decisions. And so we said we would...
Somebody questions the decision of this board?
No, they didn't question the decision. They questioned a couple conditions, if that
Go
makes
ahead,
it any
please.
better. And so we said we would apply to the board to try to amend these 2 conditions from appeals 2912 and 3305. And I will explain what those are for. And if I could, Mr. Chair, I have 2 sets of photographs that I'd like to submit,
Please do,
which will
yeah.
help you understand where we are in the marina.
Sure. Yeah, and we'll mark them, you understand, okay?
Yes, thank
We'll
you.
mark only one, and it consists of, how many pages?
6, I believe. 1, 2, 3,
Yep.
6, yes. So as you're looking at these, just to orient the board, as you're driving down Arlington, you go back past the first entrance by tugboats, and then you go past the main entrance. And then when you get down further, you'll see a very narrow driveway, which is this one. Leads into the southern lot. So this is the southern lot. And these pictures, I took pictures going into the lot, looking back to the driveway, and you can see what's there. The property is improved with 2 houses, as well as the parking, and that's what's allowed, under that has been allowed under the prior decisions. I mean, they were there before, and it's been incorporated in the marina for many decades.
Will you orient me? I don't have the photos in front of me. Is this where the entrance is? The entrance to the back lots, is that what we're talking about? The very
What you call the
narrow
back
entrance?
one. It's a narrow entrance. Yeah, if you look at yes, it's the 3rd entrance down on the right, the narrow entrance next to the house.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Beyond the main
Yeah,
Sure.
past the main entrance there.
Sure, thank you, yeah.
Correct. So what we're here tonight, we're not asking for any physical changes. What's on the ground is on the ground, what's been there is there, and we're not proposing to change that. We're just asking you to amend the two conditions that I'm going to go through. Vehicular access will continue to be from this driveway to the southern portion of the lot. Now, you'll see when you're down there, if many of you have probably been down there, when you go down, you've got the fence separating this from the main part of the marina. There's a gate in that, and there's a big hunking piece of equipment that Wayne leaves parked there, and so even when that gate's open, it's used for boats and things. There's no customer vehicular access to the main marina property. They walk back and forth, and you can see that very clearly on the layout of the marina property itself. So the two decisions in aggregate allow 21 parking spaces on the southern lot. 8 of them are for the residential uses, and 13 of them are for the commercial uses. There are 2 requirements that we're here. The first requirement that we're asking you to change is that the commercial spaces were limited seasonally. Didn't say what seasonal was, but it was limited seasonally. And so we're asking, and these are the 2 things, what we're asking for. We're not asking on his own, it's to address the concerns raised by the lender. And I would submit, jumping ahead of myself, I don't think there's any hazard, congestion, or harm to what's being requested. In the off-season, the main marina properties are often fenced off for security purposes. This is a quieter area where employees and others could park in the winter, and it's very quiet down there in the winter. In the season, obviously, it's a different story. That's the first condition.
And that's in which decision?
That starts in the 1992 decision, which is 2912, and that is condition number, I'm not even sure it was numbered, let me see. It isn't. There is on the second to last paragraph, there's a big old paragraph.
Yeah.
And it's stuck in there. And just so you know, to make life more confusing, the parcel number identifications, the address identifications, everything was different back then. So, but you can see that it says there, the first one is, the numbers were different there too, because the current numbers I gave you were raised in 1996, so the numbers there. And now that I'm looking at it, Mr. Chairman, it may be the 1996 decision that talked about that, because I'm not quickly seeing it in the 1992 decision.
Well, it's kind of an odd decision, but
Well, yeah, it was a complex review, but it was, it made sense, and it's worked well for almost 3 decades. I'm trying to find where it talked about,
looks like that.
here we go, on
David did draft it. I was going to say, it looks like a decision David might have drafted, and lo and behold, he did.
I think it is there,
Last is the first one.
Yeah, if you look in the second decision, it does talk about where the motion was made by Mr. Campbell and seconded by Mr. Robinson. It does say that with a total of not more than 21 spaces and to permit the parking for additional seasonal marina customer parking. So that was in the 1996 decision. The second condition that is in the 92 decision as well. So that is where I see it written.
so you want to change, just so we're clear, so if we go to,
I think what I'm for clarity
for
purposes.
we're under conclusion on the 92 decision, second to the last paragraph,
Conclusion, second to last paragraph, yes.
and we want to or clarify the language, parcel A20 on the condition so long as said parcels A21 and 20 remain zoned for only residential use, that existing house and accessory residential part A21 remain and be used only for residence, that there's no more than 6, that maybe this is it, for boatyard purposes. What, is it somewhere in here?
Well, it's not actually, this issue of the seasonality, Mr. Igo, you have to look at the 96 decision.
Okay, let me go there.
So jump to the.
Okay, but before we do, just help me with this, because it's a lengthy decision, obviously, but it sums up pretty quick, and of course, Mr. Reed was one of the best draftsmen I think I've ever met.
And which decision are you reading from?
Decisions.
Which decision are you reading from?
92.
92, thank
I
you.
want to stick with that one just for a minute,
Okay.
the paragraph that Mr. Igo is speaking to.
Correct.
Because are you going to tell me in 96 they expanded from 6 to 18?
Correct.
Okay.
6 to 13 commercially
Okay,
and
but
6 to 8
there still is
residential.
the issue of what it can be used for, contained within. I'm just trying to make sure that we cover all the bases.
And
if
that's
relief
the
is
second,
granted.
and that's the second, if you want, that is the second request, is from that paragraph that both of you are alluding to, is to clarify and reconfirm that while the southern lot shall not be used as a main access to the marina property by marina customers, the land may continue to be accessed from Arlington Street. What the attorney was raising the question is the language, if you read it, he was asking, well, can it be used, can the driveway be used? And we were saying, yes, it's been used forever, and so we just want to clarify.
Usually a driveway is for use out to an abutting road, isn't it?
Correct, and this driveway
checked.
leads out to Arlington Street, and what's on this property, the 2 houses and the customer parking. So
This is why I'm not a closing attorney, I'll tell you, because these guys find minutia that are really troublesome sometimes.
May I clarify which exact paragraph you're reading from?
okay, for this question about the driveway use, if you look at the second to last paragraph of the 92 decision, and it's the top of page, are you looking at a recorded copy?
Yeah, the page 129?
Correct, 129. So,
Okay,
yep.
all right, that's the paragraph.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
and if you look at the end of it, it says, nor shall be used as a main access to the marina property by marina customers. And a
So
plan.
that needs to be addressed.
Right, we don't want to change that. We agree with that, but we want to just clarify that the driveway, though, can be used to access this property.
Logical.
If that answers your question, Mr. Barron, that's where we're talking about on that condition.
Okay, so now let's move forward to 96. What do you need addressed there, please?
Okay, if you look on page 249 of the recorded copy.
There I see the name of a Meyer singer, and he
Yes,
must have presented very well for Mr. Kirker that evening.
and it's possible he wrote the decision, I don't know.
So let's go to the specific condition that we're talking about.
Okay. If you look at on that page, look at the second full paragraph down. It's the first large paragraph on the page. Again, right in the middle, it says there will be no access to the marina or commercial area from Railway, well, that's Railway Bluffs. There's no physical access there. I'm sorry, it's in the next paragraph. The accordingly, a motion was made by Mr. Campbell paragraph.
Yes, okay.
Okay. So look at the third line. It shall be used for additional seasonal marina parking. So that's the seasonal question we're asking you to change. Well, that's the other one, Mr. Chairman. So that's one of the conditions that we're asking is coming out of the 92 decision that we just read, and the second one is coming out of this 96 decision. And my thinking had been, because this does get very confusing, is that if you seek to approve these two, that we draft a decision that just says the 92 and 96 decisions are hereby amended such that, boom, there are 21 spaces, 8 are residential, 13 are commercial, they may be used year-round, and we clarify that while there shall be no main access to the marina from this parcel, the driveway may continue to be used. Something along those lines, so that people don't necessarily have to do what we're doing, which is try to piece their way through each decision. We'll have one new one that would not change, not get rid of those.
Two simple issues.
Yes.
Year-round use and driveway access to the abutting street.
Can be maintained, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And Mr. Kirker did meet, or tried to meet with as many of the neighbors as he could. He does have, there was a letter in the file from the Hyannis Park Civic Association in support of in support of the proposal. I would like to just discuss briefly, you did get an email today maybe, or yesterday, from Mr. Lewis, who owns one of the abutting houses out on Arlington Street, and his according to Mr. Lewis's email, he's in the hospital, so he was not, Mr. Kirker and he were not able to talk. He mentioned a couple things where I think he was misinterpreting what was being sought, because he suggested in his email, and he was against it, and frankly, I think Wayne would be too, he was suggesting that there was going to be some sort of a separate, more active commercial use on the property, and that somehow town land was being appropriated by the marina. And again, we haven't had a chance talking, but I just did want, for the record, to acknowledge that that's not, those are both in error. That neither one of those is requested or suggested. This is just, as we said, about, succinctly as the chair put it, seasonal, year-round use of the parking, and clarify that the driveway is a driveway.
Yeah. I need to clarify that I did speak to Mr. Lewis, but the first thing he said was, I'm heading to the hospital.
Oh, but it was before the email, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay,
and it was
yes.
before the email, and...
Okay, well, he's not here. I'd really rather not speak for Mr. Lewis, but what I would like to do is certainly read his email into the record.
Okay. With that, we appreciate your time, and we'd ask if you would
So
consider
it's
making those
year-round
changes.
use of the southern parking lot.
Correct.
Yes.
The second condition, which,
Is clarifying that while the driveway to the southern parking lot shall not be used as a main access for customers to the main marina property, it may continue to be used as a driveway for access to and from the southern parking lot and the houses thereon.
so we're affirming that the driveway is a driveway from Arlington Street in?
Yes.
We're trying to clarify that
And
language.
and
that-
it's
No
not
other
being
changes other than to the seasonality. of it.
Access from the
Yes, that's
marina.
correct.
It's not being used for main vehicular access to the marina. It's not used for vehicular access as well, but people do walk across.
Wait a minute. That's already in the decisions, though, right?
Correct.
Yes,
All right,
but
See, I don't know why, I don't know why we're addressing what's in decisions that we're not asking to be changed. Let's, as they say in the military, let's keep it simple, stupid. And I'm referring to me now, because I need to think of this simply.
Okay.
There are two matters of concern that need to be addressed. The seasonality to year-round usage of the southern parking lot.
Yes.
And the access of the driveway out to Arlington be confirmed.
Yes.
yes.
Why do we need to talk about, no access to the marina? That already exists. Why
Okay.
reinvent
And that's fine. We're not
Mr.
asking to change it.
Mr. Reed writes wonderful decisions. He crafted this perfectly. I don't want to screw with it because frankly, I don't write as good as he does.
And that is fine. Your 2 points are what we are asking.
All right, does the board, any member of the board have any discussion they'd like to have of Mr. Kirker or Mr. Singer this evening?
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a curiosity
Please.
question? What possibly was the bank concerned about with these two arcane issues?
What they were concerned about was the way it read. They said could be, if they had to foreclose on that piece of property, it could be
foreclosure.
determined that we can't use the driveway.
Got it.
Yeah.
But what about the seasonality? That baffles me. They shouldn't be concerned about seasonality. I could see the driveway thing.
Well, they said that if they had to foreclose and they couldn't park anybody there in the wintertime, how does the new owner get to access his property?
Mr. Kirker, I'm comfortable that you won't allow this property to be foreclosed.
Okay.
I'm working very hard to not let that happen.
That was the bank's concern. They're thinking in the future. They think worst-case scenario.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so clarification is warranted if that's,
I think it's a minutia, don't you?
oh, definitely, but if that's
Wow.
what they need.
And for
You're
that,
an-
we
you're
have
an
to hire
attorney.
lawyers to bring you in here tonight, Mr. Kirker.
Yes.
All right, does anybody else on our board have any questions or comments to our petitioner?
Yes, I do.
Please.
I have no, I can see no issue with what's being requested, but I do want to ask about that movable fence between the northern lot, or the
Yes.
main lot, and the southern lot. That fence is movable.
Yes, it is.
If you want to move equipment or boats.
Well, actually, we open it for the entire summer, but we leave something parked there so that vehicles can't get through. If you have it closed, people in that end of the marina don't feel like they're part of the marina. So for the summer, we open it, lock it open, and we don't let vehicles pass through, and not just because of the order from the Board of Appeals, but because it makes no sense to us to let vehicles pass through a pinch point.
Okay, the need for opening that gate is to be able to position boats into the water from the shore?
No, sir. The reason to have that gate open is so that it appears like one piece of property to the customers on the boats. We don't store any boats on that southern lot, nor do we run the forklifts there or anything else.
Okay. I did notice that there is a pedestrian gate within that movable gate,
Yes, sir.
so that you can at least have personnel going back and forth.
Exactly.
As necessary. Other than that, I have no further question.
Does anyone in our audience care to speak in favor of this petition? If so, please come to this podium, identify who you are, let us know your residence, and tell us what you will.
Evening, everybody. My name is Shane Greer. I live at 24 Arlington Street, right across the street from the driveway in mention. Not worried about, I'm in favor of this, but with one caveat. We talk about using the driveway as an entrance into, I'm just concerned about it being an egress from the area.
I apologize, being an egress problem?
Right. In other words, not people going in, but people coming out.
Yeah.
Okay. That's, emergency situations, sure, open the gate, let people get out. But on a regular basis, that's my only concern. That's all I have to say, but I am in favor of
Are you suggesting the gate in between
Yes, sir.
the other lot and this?
Yes, that movable gate.
He doesn't
I
want
got
people
you.
to come from the main marina out this way.
That's correct. That's my only concern.
I don't think that that's an improper condition to put on this, is it? That's not going on now, is it?
No, it's not.
Even on those nights when the Trader Ed's might be having a Patron night, that doesn't happen, does
Even on Patron night, we don't have vehicles pass through that pinch point.
it? Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else care? Thank you very much for your brevity of your comments. Anybody else care to speak in favor of this petition? And seeing none, we now close. I'm sorry, does anyone care to speak in opposition to the petition? Seeing none, we now close it to public commentary on the petition. We
Mr.
open up the
Chairman?
board discussion and
Just a point of order, you had
Sorry,
that, you had that email.
Oh, you are correct. Thank you for keeping me on my toes. You are a good progeny. I thank you again for sending the information I asked for. This is by Mr. Joe Lewis, who I want to say to Mr. Lewis and his family, I hope you recover soon, sir. I thank you for sending the information I asked for. This is addressed to Sandy. First and foremost, I am not an attorney. I am the abutter at 29 Arlington. My wife and I live at 31 Arlington and are both registered voters in Yarmouth. We have been here since '83. After reviewing the information you sent and other information available on the internet, it appears that Hyannis Marina's mortgage lender is trying to convert deeded town land, which is a right-of-way and right-of-use, to Hyannis Marina commercial property. I am not sure if that is legal. I have also used the driveway in question in the right rear of my space since '83 to park and to access the rear of my house, which is the only available driveway I have. There is only 2 parking spaces in front of my house, especially when having contractors and service companies working on the property. Please review with the Zoning Board of Appeals and let me know if you have any questions. A lot of information I received was from Lewis and Oliver, information dating back over 100 years. Our home and bedrooms back up to the lot. They are trying to convert into commercial property and having autos and trucks coming and going from early in the morning to late at night, some of which have loud or no mufflers. Those are probably kids going in a Trader Ed's late at night, I would think. But when we first moved in '83, the deeded right-of-way behind us had a vegetable garden behind it. Now it has a crushed stone parking area, huh? Shamey. I am being treated at the Mass General Hospital for pneumonia and not be able to attend the petition pre-meeting tonight. I just found out about the petition a week ago and did not have time to prepare a statement. Hopefully this will suffice. I thought it was a very eloquent statement, to be honest with you. unfortunately, we're not gonna be able to accept what you had as a conversation with Mr. Lewis, but I think Mr. Lewis just didn't understand what you were doing, because you two have certainly clarified it very well tonight. And the concerns he has expressed of some conversion of this property to some new and different use is not what you're seeking at all, nor the relief you're asking, will the relief you're asking for result in that. So, for the life of me, I can't understand why they would require that beautiful location to be used as, for parking for your facility only in the season. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but, okay, so be it. So, does the board care to have any discussion, or is somebody prepared to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Well, let me see first, did any board member want to have any discussion? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Igo, please.
The first question is, we can just modify both. Are you satisfied that we can modify both petitions?
As long as we mention both,
Okay.
by petition number, I
Then
believe yes.
We will modify petitions
2912.
2912 and 3305 to allow year-round use of the southern parking lot. And that the driveway, and that the driveway to the southern parking lot is accessed by and from Arlington Street.
Yes.
Is that all you needed?
And driveway to the southern parking lot is accessed by and from Arlington Street. Could we also say for the use of the southern
Sure,
parking lot?
for the use
It's
of-
pedantic, but.
Right, sure.
Yep.
Just in case.
Say
Mr. Kirk
that,
gets foreclosed.
I can only write so fast, so would somebody say that last line you want in there again to me?
In the driveway, I'm repeating what Mr. Igo said, and the driveway to the southern parking lot
Yeah.
is accessed by and from Arlington Street for use of the southern parking lot. It's not wonderful language, but
Mr. Chairman, does that take care of the concern that the gentleman had about egress?
Yeah, because the access is from Arlington Street. It's not from the internal marina going out.
Okay.
He was worried about going
Well,
out.
All right.
Well, that isn't permitted under, I just want to clarify, my understanding in reading the prior decisions was that that wasn't allowed in any event.
I don't believe it.
That's
We're not
right.
changing
Through
that.
traffic to
We're not-
come
we're not
through.
We're not changing that in any way.
But I don't see any problem with that being additional language now being added to
Right.
clarify that.
Condition, yeah.
That the access between the marina and the southern parking lot, you want to just say that it's for emergency?
No, let's not say anything. Let's just say it's not for general use
Right.
as
There
access.
is no access, yeah.
General use between the two parking lots, that's all.
Okay, I'm only concerned about the word general, it's 'cause
Public?
again, they used main access by marina customers before. I like that, I mean, I think that language would be the clearest to say, and the access between, and I think what you said is the access between the main marina and the southern parking lot, are you saying shall not be used
For public egress?
for public egress? I mean, emergencies are emergencies, I'm not worried about that, but,
Absent an emergency.
yeah,
Let's not overthink it,
right.
Yeah.
because then the lender will hold it up even longer.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, I'm satisfied that it doesn't even need to be a further stated condition, but I don't think it's a bad thing to put in there.
I think I found maybe a simple way to say it, the words used before were that it shall not be used for main marina access. What if we just add in or egress?
Or egress.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And that'll address Mr. Greer's comments and I think in a
takes
way
care
that
of it
won't
fine.
confuse
Yeah,
anybody.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Might want to, and if you want, Mr. Chairman, maybe also add in a line that all other provisions of those two decisions remain in effect.
Oh, of course.
And
Of
then
course, I would expect that in the draft that I'm going to receive, yes.
That's why I'm taking good notes.
And again, my concern is that we overthink this thing, and the bank comes back and says, well,
Yeah, right.
Now look.
Yes, I'm
And we've
trying to
created yet
avoid
another new
that.
monster. The simpler we keep it, satisfy the concerns, the
You may
better
be able to
off we
read
all
my
are.
Writing, but. To allow use of the lot, and the driveway of the southern parking lot is accessed by and from Arlington Street for use of the
Uh-oh.
southern parking lot.
Mr. Kirk is now needing to approve.
Access between the main, well, he is my client. And between the main marina and southern parking lot shall not be used for main marina access or egress. What is?
Well, the goal is that it doesn't get used as the access or the egress to the big marina parking lot, the main parking lot.
Correct.
To say any more than that might be troublesome somewhere, so what did you say?
Well, here, we are clear, and I'm just reiterating, so what we're trying to say clearly for that is that the driveway to the southern lot is accessed from the road for use of the lot.
I'm going
Of the
to
southern
make a
lot.
suggestion.
Yeah,
Let
for
me
the
make,
southern
For the
lot,
southern
correct,
lot.
correct.
let me make a suggestion. I think that it's imperative that we get this right.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you two step this back, let us get to the next petitioner, resolve the next petitioner, then you return, so we can talk about the precise language that will not cause more harm than good. Okay?
Yes.
That's fine, thank you.
All right, so then we come to now, a continued matter from September 13, from October 25, which was never opened but continued nevertheless. It's petition 4767 Mashpee Commons Limited Partnership, 22 Steeple Street. No, I'm sorry, that's where Mashpee Commons is located. The property that we're talking about here tonight, with apparently some show and tell, it includes, is relating to 1186 Great Island Road, West Yarmouth, Mass. The property's in a zoning district R87, and our applicant seeks to modify decision 2440 to subdivide Lot 35, thus creating two lots. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Tom Ferranti. I am here on behalf of Mashpee Commons Limited Partnership, and with me this evening is Buff Chase, who is the managing general partner of Mashpee Commons. And as the chairman stated, we are here to seek a modification of the 1987 special permit for Great Island to subdivide Lot 35.
Why don't you go ahead and tell us all about it?
Okay.
you would.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Buff Chase. Yeah, the purpose here tonight is to take Lot 35 and subdivide it into two smaller lots. And I don't know, Tom, whether you want to show the gentleman and the lady what it looks like. Not sure exactly what you have in front of you.
The plans that we have up here on the board are the same plans that were submitted with your application. I simply brought them in case you wanted to be able to look up while we were having the discussion.
Sure,
But
thank you very much for that.
Nothing has changed from what was originally submitted for the hearing in September that was originally continued.
Okay. So, is there anything else you want to tell us about why we should grant this? I mean, it's fine by me.
Yeah. I don't believe so.
Listening.
I would say that, just in general terms, the community of Great Island, the demand is more on smaller homes than larger homes, and this allows us to have, smaller lots that would have sort of cottage-like dwellings on it as opposed to larger homes.
Can I ask a quick question specifically to this?
Absolutely.
Now, this is part of a number of lots that provide for a main house and a guest house. Am I reading that correctly?
Correct.
Is it your intention to retain that right to have two structures on each of these lots?
No, it would be a single.
It would be a single, so you would be giving that right up to have two. Okay.
Well, the right exists only because of the lot that now is there, right?
Yes.
Right.
Correct. Subdivide it. You're not getting four houses where two are only allowed originally.
But it's a break even with the number of dwelling units on the overall lot. So instead of a house and a guest cottage, which was permitted on Lot 35, it would be cottage-type houses on each one of the subdivided lots.
Okay. Well, that was really one of the main questions that I had. The only other question I had was the frontage that you're now going to have, 75 feet and 63 feet respectively. Do you require any variance relief from that, because you don't have 100 feet of frontage?
Mr. Igo, you're reading that incorrectly. Each frontage is more than 100 feet,
As subdivided?
as noted here on the plans. The 70.
Yeah, you have to add the
Oh,
75
The
plus the
75 and the
33.
33.
I'm looking at a different,
Yeah,
am I
Yeah,
looking at a
that's
different
because of
number?
the arc in the road. He brings it to
You
a
gotta
point
add
in
the
the
two.
arc.
yeah.
Oh, I
That number
see.
and that
Oh,
number,
I
'cause that's
see.
where
I'm looking at the
that's where
wrong
curve
number.
is. Yeah,
And
no,
and that
right
is
number,
one of the
just add them.
dimensional requirements of the
Yeah.
special permit is 100 feet of frontage for each lot. So the dimensional standards for each one of the subdivided lots meets the dimensional requirements from the special permit.
Okay, no.
And let me make sure I understand what you just said. That the dimensional requirements of the special permit are met by the proposed subdivision of this property.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, I guess just to chime in a little bit about some of my thoughts on this.
Well, wait a minute, let's
Okay.
see if anybody else has
Oh,
questions.
all right, yep.
Ms.
That's all the
Britta.
questions I had right now, thank you.
Ms.
Just want to
Britta.
clarify, no abutters, no one to object?
Well, actually, I believe that there was a letter of support from the abutting property owner, Mr. Storrs.
To the south, yeah.
It was submitted?
Yeah, it was submitted prior to the October hearing, which we continued until now.
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Nicanello.
No questions, thank you.
And you, Mr. Barron?
Yeah, and I had the opportunity on the site visit to speak with Mr. Soares. He was very kind to show me exactly where the bounds were that were being proposed. It needed someone to be a guide, believe me. But I fully understand the nature of your proposal. That's all I have.
So we have the Board of Health weighing in. It appears to have absolutely no relevance whatsoever to this discussion. But we seek their input, and so we get it.
And Ms. Clark did pass that along to us, the requirement for no more than one bedroom for every 10,000 square feet. The lots are over 30,000 square feet. One is 36.5
That
and
means
one's
3 bedrooms on
36.3.
each.
So it's 3 bedrooms would be allowed with a Title V system.
That's between you and the Board of Health.
No.
There's a correspondence, October 5, 2018, Douglas Storrs, trustee of something.
I don't see it.
As to this petition that's being proposed, thus creating 2 lots, please be advised that as a direct abutter, I am, and this is emphatically noted, or in bold print noted, I am in favor of this request. Nice to have good neighbors from Beaufort, South Carolina, isn't it? So my only questions are that our statement is that I'm relying upon your representation that without reading this very comprehensive grant of certificate granting of variance or special permit going back to July 2187, that the document you are presenting for a proposed subdivision plan is meeting the dimensional requirements of the special permit. And I wish that were noted somewhere on this plan and ask why it isn't. or why can't it be? A certification of the engineer that the,
Okay.
you can do it right over on the notes, side 5, rather ending in 5, you could add a 6. And the language can be whatever works specifically that's going to note that the dimensional requirements are consistent with the previous grant of special permit. I don't want to research that to do it. I'm taking you on your representation. I believe that representation, and I also believe that's why you did that kind of funny little curly Q line up there in the street. But
Well, to give you a little bit of comfort, this goes back to June, when I initially met with the building commissioner to discuss this project. And at the time, we submitted a letter to the building commissioner in which we stated the dimensional requirements as we understood them from the special permit.
Yeah.
In a response from Mr. Brandolini, he did confirm that those dimensional requirements were accurate. We can certainly have those added on to the plans.
yeah, I don't think it's a very big deal.
It's
for them
not,
to add
yeah.
that note on the final submission to the. Well, you've got to submit this plan to the land court, don't you?
Yeah. Ultimately, it does have to be. Yeah, it would have to be.
Sure, it's land court property, and you're changing the land court plan. But you also have to record it down at the registry of
Correct.
deeds after the grant of this, which I expect you're going to receive tonight. But I would certainly want that, any discussion of a grant this evening to be conditioned upon your submission back to us within the time period of the 20 days. Is that?
Absolutely. If the board is so
I'll have it
gracious
here
to accept
tomorrow.
this request for the modification, we would be happy to get the plans updated to add the information that you've requested and submit it back to the board.
Okay. Well, I'm not the one that makes motions around here, but I'm hopeful somebody might include that in their motion. So is somebody prepared to make a motion? Well, let me stop and say, as I must, that there is. Are you in favor of this petition or would like to speak in favor of it?
Neutral.
You're neutral, okay.
No headlights coming into your house.
Gee, I wish the rest of the world were neutral these days, or at least willing to come to a neutrality. In any event, we see nobody in our audience that is either in favor or against this petition, so we're going to close it off to public commentary and discussion about the petition. We're going to move it along to board consideration. If somebody's prepared to make a motion, I'd appreciate them doing so.
I'd like to make a motion that we grant the relief requested, and that, what is the number of this petition, the original one?
4767.
4767, petition number 4767. No, that's this petition.
It's
This application.
2440.
That petition 2440 be modified to allow the subdivision of lot
35. 35, yes.
Lot 35. The only condition I would say is that the language relative to the dimensional requirements have been met, and that only one house per lot be constructed upon. Which I think they'd be restricted otherwise, even if we didn't have that language in there, from what I read in the decision. Okay.
A new plan.
What's that?
Note number 6. A new plan be submitted back to us for note number 6.
A new plan be submitted
With
back.
the dimension, that's with the dimensional
Yeah, with that-
clarification,
with that note.
certification that the dimensional requirements are met.
Submit that
Yeah,
back to the
yeah.
board.
Let me just catch up, guys, okay? Again, my hand's getting tired. I've been doing this all day long.
Take your time.
Thanks. Geez, I'm dying for a cigarette right now.
We know.
We're all dying.
All right. A motion's been made by Mr. Igo, and let me reiterate the conditions that this petition be allowed and that it be, result in the modification of petition number 2440 to permit the subdivision of this lot into 2 lots as shown on the plan.
Number 35.
Thank you. I'll put that down, yeah. You know, make it simpler to write it that way. That there be a submission back to the board of a plan that incorporates a new note 6, which will indicate that the dimensional requirements of these 2 now resulting 2 new reconfigured lots meets the prior grant of special permit. So on that motion, is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I just call attention to the comments by the Health Department on this lot.
Yeah, I referenced those, Tom. Is there something about them?
Well, no, just that 1 bedroom per 10,000 square feet means that each lot can only be 3 bedrooms.
I think that's between them and the, that's
All right.
truly between you and the Board of
Okay.
Health.
Yeah.
and the building
Just a point of
department. That's not any part of the relief being asked, and I don't care to go outside the 4 corners of the petition, to be quite honest with you.
Okay.
So on that motion made by Mr. Igo with the stated conditions, is there a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Nicanello, thank you. And on that second, on that motion made, now seconded, does the board care to have any discussion before moving it along to a vote?
The only discussion I would have is I think they meet the criteria under the bylaw relative to the cluster development, as well as if it was a standalone. It's certainly a reasonable request. They are mitigating this in so far as they are taking what could have been 2 houses on 1 lot, dividing it and having 1 lot on each. So it's just it's a net result as was represented before. So that is all I wanted to add, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I hope it's a net result to the petitioner, too. So on that, does anybody else care to comment before moving it on to a vote? And hearing none, all those in favor of the motion made by Mr. Nicanello, Mr. Igo, with the stated conditions and seconded by Mr. Nicanello, please indicate your those in favor by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? So that carries unanimously. A decision will be drafted, unless you'd like to draft it for me. And when it's filed with the town clerk's office, it will then have 20 days, which must go by before it's considered a final decision. That's a technical waiting period. Once those 20 days elapse, you will need to bring the plan at least to the Barnstable town Registry of Deeds, and likely to the land court down at that Registry of Deeds for its recordation, returning proof of its recordation back to our board secretary. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.
Getting close to that cigarette.
You have an addition.
Well, you know, I'm going to invite the
Wait,
petitioners, the other petitioners back in. But while we do that, while Ms. Clark goes to the door and invites the petitioners back in, has everybody had a chance to review the minutes?
I did, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
And can everybody who sat on those meetings in which they were involved and reviewed the minutes of those meetings, did you have a chance to do so, Susan?
No, I did not, but I will defer to my colleagues.
You certainly did, Mr. Igo. I know you read those minutes every line by line.
I had to.
Yes.
It's the only way I could have written the decision.
I see.
It's hard to handwrite down.
And so on the approval, we need to approve those minutes because the town administration is very anxious to see that we stay current with that process. And so does anybody care to have any discussion about those minutes before proceeding to a vote on approval? Hearing none. Does anybody care to make a motion to improve the minutes submitted most recently by Ms. Clark and in blank. In bank, rather, excuse me.
I'll make the motion, we approved all said minutes.
There
Mr.
you go.
Chairman.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
And all those in favor of the motion made by Mr. Nicanello, seconded by Ms. Britta, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? That carries unanimously. Those minutes are now carried and approved. Thank you. And we have our next to last petition and now returning for round 2. Did we come up with some language that we all can agree will satisfy the mortgage lender and will be approved by us?
I hope so. Yes.
Yeah, let us hear it.
All right, so what we tried to do is be consistent with the original
Let's
decision.
just come to it.
The motion is to modify decisions 2912 and 3305 to A, allow year-round use of the southern parking lot. B, confirm that the existing driveway to and from Arlington Street provides vehicular access and egress for the use of the southern parking lot. And C, the southern parking lot shall not become the main vehicular access or egress to the remainder of the marina by marina customers.
Gee, that sounds suitable to me. Does it meet with everybody else's concerns?
Yep.
Why don't we just see if we can't have a vote? Hopefully it will pass, and unless you'd like to withdraw the request, and we'll consider it another time.
I'm not letting you off the hook that easy.
All right, so who's prepared to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
So, wow.
Go.
I can't even get the paper out.
The ship has sailed.
I guess everybody's tired and wants to go home, huh? So will you include that language in a draft decision that you'll email to me so I can then tell Ms. Clark that it should be approved? She can affix my name to it?
No, that should be approved, yes.
It was
Mr. Igo
and
motion
it
and
was
Mr. Barron
Am I
second.
correct on that?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, so on that motion made by Mr. Igo, seconded by Mr. Barron, all those in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That carries unanimously.
Thank you.
very much. We appreciate your time.
And with that, we now adjourn the meeting. I don't need to tell you about the rules and regulations.
Anybody like any candy before you go?
He's got a-
No, thank you.
All right.